To our amazing viewers at Cheating Tales Lab, welcome and thank you. Your presence makes these stories worth sharing. We'd love to hear, which part of the world are you joining us from? Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Deep. Commander Tyler Briggs had spent half his life underwater, but he'd never felt the crushing weight of the ocean depths like he did staring at his laptop screen in the USS Hartford's cramped communications bay. The email had arrived 3 hours into their deployment, just as the submarine settled into its patrol pattern 400 feet below the Atlantic surface. At 38, Tyler commanded respect throughout the Pacific Fleet. He'd earned his dolphins at 22, youngest in his class, and had spent 16 years mastering the art of silent warfare beneath the waves. His crew trusted him with their lives, and Tyler had never failed them. But apparently, trust was a luxury that didn't extend to his marriage. The subject line read, "Time to be honest." Tyler had expected another routine message from Brooke about school events or household repairs. Instead, he found a declaration of war. "Tyler, I can't pretend anymore. While you're playing sailor boy under the water, I found someone who actually wants to be present for his family. His name is Kyle Hoffman, and he's everything you're not: attentive, caring, and here when we need him. I'm keeping the house and the kids. My lawyer says the judge will agree that the children need stability, not a father who disappears for months at a time. Kyle's already been more of a father to Emma and Josh in 3 months than you've been in their entire lives. Don't bother fighting this. You lost this family the day you chose the Navy over us. Brooke." Tyler read the message 3 times, his expression never changing. Around him, the submarine's rhythmic hum continued unchanged, the sound of controlled power, precision engineering, and absolute discipline. The same qualities that had made Tyler successful in the Navy, and the same qualities Brooke had apparently grown tired of. Tyler's background hadn't prepared him for easy relationships. Raised by his grandfather after his parents died in a car accident when he was 12, he learned early that survival meant self-reliance, discipline, and never showing weakness. His grandfather, a Korean War veteran, had taught him that emotional displays were luxury items, useful in peacetime, deadly in war. "Tears don't stop bullets, boy," the old man had said, "and feelings don't win battles." Tyler had met Brooke Chen at a Navy charity event 8 years ago. She'd been a nurse at the base hospital, beautiful, intelligent, and seemingly understanding of military life. She'd laughed at his stories about submarine duty, claimed to find his dedication admirable, and promised to build a life that could survive his deployments. They'd married after a year of dating, and their first child, Emma, had arrived 11 months later. Josh followed 2 years after that. Tyler had believed he'd found the perfect military wife, someone who understood sacrifice, commitment, and the long-term rewards of serving something larger than yourself. Apparently, he'd been wrong. Tyler closed the laptop and walked through the submarine's narrow corridors to his quarters. The space was barely larger than a closet, containing a narrow bunk, a small desk, and a locker for his personal effects. He pulled out a framed photo of Emma and Josh, 8 and 6 years old, respectively, and studied their faces. Emma had Tyler's dark eyes and analytical mind. At 8, she was already showing signs of the systematic thinking that made Tyler effective underwater. Josh was more like Brooke, emotional, social, quick to trust. Tyler had worried about that trait in his son, knowing how easily trusting people could be exploited. Now it seemed his concerns had been prophetic. Tyler's phone showed 17 missed calls from Brooke over the past week, all while the submarine had been maintaining radio silence during their approach to the patrol area. He scrolled through her text messages, noting the escalation from frustrated to angry to triumphant. The final message, sent just before her email, read, "Kyle moved in today. The kids love having a real dad around." Tyler set the phone aside and opened his personal laptop. As a submarine commander, he'd learned to think in 3 dimensions, not just where enemies were now, but where they would be, what they would do, and how to position assets for maximum advantage. The ocean was vast, but submarines succeeded by controlling small, critical spaces with devastating precision. Tyler opened a secure notes app and began typing. Operational assessment: Brooke Chen Briggs and Kyle Hoffman. Objective: total asset recovery and hostile elimination. For the next hour, Tyler documented everything he knew about his wife's betrayal, Kyle Hoffman's background, and the legal and financial vulnerabilities he could exploit. His training had taught him that successful operations required intelligence, planning, and patience. Rushing led to mistakes, and mistakes underwater were usually fatal. Tyler had 3 months before the Hartford returned to port. 3 months of radio silence. No communication with the outside world, no distractions from planning. Brooke thought she'd chosen the perfect time to destroy their marriage, while Tyler was trapped underwater, unable to respond or defend himself. She had no idea that she'd given him the greatest tactical advantage possible, time to plan her complete destruction without interference. Tyler opened a new document and began outlining Phase 1 of his operation. He titled it Silent Running, the submarine term for operating in complete stealth mode, invisible to enemies until the moment of attack. By the time the Hartford surfaced, Brooke and Kyle would discover what happened when you declared war on someone who'd spent 16 years learning how to win battles from the depths. Chapter 2. Intelligence Gathering. Tyler's first advantage was information. As a submarine commander, he had access to naval intelligence networks that most civilians never knew existed. More importantly, he understood how to gather information without leaving traces, a skill essential for submarine warfare. Using the Hartford's secure communication systems during scheduled intelligence briefings, Tyler began building comprehensive profiles on both Brooke and Kyle Hoffman. What he discovered about Kyle made his blood run cold. Kyle wasn't some innocent civilian who'd fallen for a lonely military wife. He was a professional predator. Kyle Hoffman, 35, had been married twice before. Both marriages had ended in ugly divorces where the husbands, both military men, had lost custody of their children and most of their assets. Kyle worked as a personal trainer and martial arts instructor, positions that gave him access to military wives dealing with loneliness and stress. Tyler's investigation revealed Kyle's pattern: target military wives during deployments, position himself as the understanding civilian who gets what she's going through, gradually poison her against her husband, then move in for the kill during extended deployments when the husband can't defend himself. The most disturbing discovery was Kyle's social media presence. Photos dating back 3 months showed Kyle with Emma and Josh, teaching them martial arts, taking them to movies, essentially replacing Tyler in every family activity. Comments from Brooke's friends praised Kyle as such a great father figure and questioned why Tyler was never around. Tyler realized this wasn't spontaneous infidelity. It was a calculated campaign. But Kyle had made one critical error. He'd chosen to target a submarine commander. Tyler spent his off-duty hours in the submarine's small library, researching family law, asset protection, and psychological warfare techniques. The Hartford's crew noticed their commander's increased intensity, but attributed it to the stress of the patrol. Tyler had always been focused. Now he was laser-focused. Lieutenant Commander Hayes Morrison, Tyler's executive officer and closest friend aboard the Hartford, finally confronted him during their 3rd week underwater. "Skipper, you've been different since that communication session 2 weeks ago. Everything okay at home?" Tyler considered his response carefully. Hayes was a good officer and a loyal friend, but operational security demanded compartmentalization. "Hayes, what do you know about asymmetric warfare?" "Sir, when a smaller, weaker force uses unconventional tactics to defeat a larger, stronger enemy. What's the key to success?" Hayes thought for a moment. "Superior intelligence, choosing when and where to engage, and exploiting the enemy's assumptions about your capabilities." Tyler nodded. "Exactly. Sometimes the best submarine attack isn't the one where you fire the most torpedoes. It's the one where you sink the enemy before they even know you're there." That conversation gave Tyler his strategy framework. Brooke and Kyle thought they were fighting a conventional divorce: paperwork, lawyers, custody hearings. They expected Tyler to respond emotionally, to fight desperately to save his marriage, to make the typical mistakes of a betrayed husband. Instead, Tyler would wage psychological and legal warfare on a level they couldn't comprehend. Tyler's second advantage was his military network. Submariners formed a brotherhood unlike any other military specialty. When you've shared recycled air and confined spaces for months at a time, you develop unbreakable bonds with your shipmates. Tyler began reaching out to former crew members through secure military channels. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, now working private security in Virginia. Lieutenant Palmer, who'd become a civilian lawyer specializing in military divorces. Senior Chief Walker, who'd retired to start an investigation agency. Each contact was subtle, framed as routine catch-up conversations between old shipmates. But Tyler was building an intelligence network that would activate the moment he returned to port. The most valuable contact was Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres, a JAG officer Tyler had served with early in his career. Rachel now worked at the Pentagon, specializing in military family law and asset protection. Through encrypted military channels, Tyler outlined his situation to Rachel. Her response was immediate and illuminating. "Tyler, you're dealing with a known pattern. I've seen Kyle Hoffman's name in 3 other cases involving submarine families. He specifically targets spouses during long deployments. The good news is his pattern makes him predictable. The bad news is he's gotten very good at manipulating family courts. But there are countermeasures if you're willing to be thorough." Tyler replied, "Define thorough." "Complete documentation of his predatory pattern, financial manipulation to protect your assets, and evidence that he's psychologically damaging your children by deliberately alienating them from their father. It's not pretty, but it's legal, and it works." Tyler spent the remainder of their 4th week underwater planning what Rachel called defensive positioning. Using secure military banking protocols, he began restructuring his assets in ways that would protect them from divorce proceedings. Military regulations provided numerous options for asset protection that civilian courts couldn't easily access. More importantly, Tyler began documenting everything Kyle had posted on social media about Emma and Josh. What Kyle thought was evidence of his superior parenting was actually evidence of parental alienation, a serious factor in custody determinations. By the end of the 4th week, Tyler had built a comprehensive intelligence picture of his enemies and established the infrastructure for his counterattack. But intelligence was only the first phase of submarine warfare. Next came positioning for the attack. Tyler opened his secure notes and began outlining Phase 2, approach and positioning for torpedo run. Kyle Hoffman had declared war on a submarine commander during the one time when Tyler had maximum planning capability and 0 distractions. It was like attacking Pearl Harbor while giving the Pacific Fleet 3 months advance warning. Tyler smiled grimly as he reviewed his growing operational plan. Brooke and Kyle thought they were fighting a desperate, confused husband. They were about to discover they'd engaged a strategic weapon. Chapter 3. The trap is set. 6 weeks into the deployment, Tyler received another email from Brooke. This one was different, less triumphant, more defensive. "Tyler, I know you're angry, but you need to understand this is what's best for everyone. The kids are happier than they've ever been. Kyle's teaching them confidence and self-defense. Emma's grades have improved, and Josh isn't having those anxiety attacks anymore. We're a real family now, something we never were with you gone all the time. My lawyer says if you contest the custody arrangement, it'll just traumatize the kids more. Do the right thing for once and just sign the papers." Tyler read between the lines. Brooke was feeling pressure from somewhere, probably her lawyer, who'd likely researched Tyler's military record and realized they weren't dealing with a typical submarine spouse. The mention of anxiety attacks was particularly revealing. Josh had never had anxiety attacks before Kyle entered their lives. Tyler composed his response carefully. "Brooke, I understand you've made your decision. I won't contest anything. The kids deserve stability. I'll sign whatever papers you send. Take care of yourself." Tyler. Short, accepting, defeated. Exactly what Kyle would expect from a broken military husband receiving divorce papers while trapped underwater. Brooke's reply came within hours. "Thank you for being mature about this. I know this is hard, but it's for the best." Tyler deleted both emails and continued planning. His investigation into Kyle had revealed something interesting. Kyle's martial arts studio was struggling financially. He'd been borrowing money from previous girlfriends, always with promises to pay them back once his business took off. But Kyle was a better predator than businessman. His studio was 3 months behind on rent, and he'd been using credit cards to maintain his lifestyle. Kyle's attraction to military wives wasn't just psychological, it was financial. Military families typically had stable incomes, government benefits, and asset accumulation. Kyle was essentially a financial parasite who used emotional manipulation to access military benefits through marriage. But Tyler had found Kyle's weakness, his ego. Through his network of former shipmates, Tyler learned that Kyle had been bragging around town about stealing a submarine commander's wife and showing some military tough guy who the real man was. Kyle apparently enjoyed telling anyone who'd listened that submariners were cowards who hid underwater, and that he could take any military guy in a real fight. Kyle's arrogance would be his downfall. Tyler spent week 7 developing what submariners called attack solutions, multiple scenarios for engaging the enemy, depending on how they position themselves. In submarine warfare, you always plan multiple attack vectors because enemies rarely behaved exactly as predicted. Tyler's primary attack vector focused on Kyle's pattern of financial exploitation. Through Rachel Torres at the Pentagon, Tyler obtained documentation of Kyle's involvement in the previous military divorces. The pattern was clear. Kyle would move in with military wives during deployments, gradually gain access to their finances, then disappear with significant assets once the divorce was finalized. But Kyle had made a critical error with Brooke. He'd moved in too quickly, been too visible on social media, and left too much evidence of his systematic approach. Tyler now had documentation proving Kyle was running a systematic scheme to defraud military families. Tyler's secondary attack vector targeted Brooke's legal position. Military family law was complex, with special protections for deployed service members. Brooke's lawyer had clearly advised her to wait until Tyler's deployment ended to file papers, but Kyle's impatience had pushed her to act prematurely. This gave Tyler numerous legal advantages he could exploit. The tertiary attack vector was personal. Kyle's social media posts showed him taking Emma and Josh to his martial arts studio, teaching them that their father was weak for being away and gradually poisoning them against military service. This constituted documented parental alienation, one of the few factors that could result in a father gaining primary custody, even in contentious divorces. But Tyler's most devastating weapon was Kyle's own psychology. Everything in Kyle's pattern suggested he was a narcissist who couldn't resist demonstrating his superiority. Tyler planned to use that weakness to destroy him completely. Week 8 brought Tyler's final piece of intelligence. Through Chief Rodriguez's private security contacts, Tyler learned that Kyle had been researching Tyler's deployment schedule, his submarine's capabilities, and his military record. Kyle was apparently fascinated by submarine warfare and had been telling people he wasn't impressed by Tyler's service record. Kyle had also been asking questions around the base about Tyler's financial situation, his combat experience, and whether he was the type to get violent when he returned. Kyle was clearly worried about physical confrontation, but trying to hide it behind bravado. This gave Tyler the perfect psychological profile for his enemy, a predator who was effective against unprepared victims but became vulnerable when facing organized resistance. Kyle's confidence depended on maintaining control over the narrative and the emotional state of his targets. Tyler planned to systematically destroy both. During week 9, Tyler began implementing what he called prepositioning. Using his military network, he arranged for assets to be moved, documentation to be prepared, and legal resources to be positioned. When the Hartford surfaced, Tyler would have everything in place for immediate action. Rachel Torres had prepared a comprehensive legal strategy that would protect Tyler's assets, establish grounds for Kyle's prosecution for fraud, and document the psychological damage Kyle was inflicting on Emma and Josh. Private investigator Senior Chief Walker had begun surveillance of Kyle's activities, documenting his pattern of financial exploitation and his systematic alienation of Tyler's children. Most importantly, Tyler had arranged for psychological evaluations of Emma and Josh through military family services. The evaluations would be conducted by Dr. Angela Price, a Navy psychologist who specialized in deployment-related family stress. Dr. Price's preliminary assessment, based on school records and teacher interviews, already showed concerning changes in both children's behavior since Kyle's arrival. As the Hartford prepared for its final week underwater, Tyler reviewed his comprehensive operational plan. Every aspect of Brooke and Kyle's life would be systematically analyzed, documented, and demolished. Tyler's training had taught him that successful submarine attacks weren't about brute force. They were about precision, timing, and striking at the enemy's most vulnerable points. Brooke thought she'd chosen the perfect time to destroy their marriage. Kyle thought he'd found another easy military target. Neither of them understood that they'd given a submarine commander 3 months to plan their complete annihilation. Tyler's final entry in his operational log read, Phase 3, surface, and engage. All weapons armed and ready. The Hartford was coming home. Chapter 4. Breaking the Surface. The USS Hartford breached the surface 127 miles off the Virginia coast at 0847 hours on a gray Tuesday morning. After 93 days underwater, the crew felt the familiar sensation of ocean swells beneath their feet as the submarine settled into surface running. Tyler stood on the bridge, breathing salt air and feeling natural sunlight for the first time in over 3 months. But his mind wasn't on the beauty of the ocean's surface. It was on the 42 missed calls from Brooke that had appeared on his phone the moment they'd restored communications. Tyler didn't return the calls. Instead, he activated the first phase of his surface operation. His first call was to Rachel Torres at the Pentagon. "Rachel, we're up. Execute Phase 1. Already in motion, Tyler. Senior Chief Walker's surveillance reports are in your secure email. Dr. Price's psychological evaluations are complete. And Kyle Hoffman just made a very interesting mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "He tried to withdraw money from your joint account yesterday. Apparently, Brooke gave him access to show him how much money you've been hiding from her. Bank security flagged it because military accounts have special protection protocols during deployments." Tyler smiled grimly. Kyle's greed had triggered federal banking security measures. "What's the exposure?" "Attempted theft of military assets during active deployment. Federal crime, mandatory prosecution." Walker has video of Kyle at the bank, arguing with the manager when the withdrawal was denied. Tyler's phone buzzed with another call from Brooke. He ignored it. "What about the kids?" "Dr. Price's evaluation is damning. Both children show signs of systematic parental alienation and emotional manipulation. Emma's been told you don't love them enough to come home, and Josh has been having nightmares about bad things happening if you return. Dr. Price is prepared to testify that Kyle's behavior constitutes psychological abuse." Tyler knelt and hugged his children, noting how they both seemed smaller, more anxious than when he'd left. Emma's hug was tight but brief, and she kept looking toward Kyle with an expression Tyler recognized from submarine operations. The look of someone caught between conflicting loyalties. "Tyler," Brooke said, her voice artificially bright, "you look good. The deployment went well." Tyler stood, keeping his children close. It was educational. Kyle rose from Tyler's recliner, the chair Tyler had bought after his first deployment, his personal space in his own home. Kyle was bigger than Tyler had expected, about 6'2" with the build of someone who lived in gyms. He wore a tank top that showed off his physique and a confident smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "So you're the submarine commander," Kyle said, extending his hand. "I'm Kyle. I've been helping Brooke and the kids while you were away." Tyler looked at the extended hand for a long moment, then ignored it completely. Kyle Hoffman, 35 years old, divorced twice, currently 3 months behind on rent for your martial arts studio. Previously involved with Linda Morrison and Jessica Chun, both military wives whose husbands were deployed when you entered their lives. Kyle's confidence flickered. "I don't know what you're talking about." Tyler pulled out his phone and scrolled through photos. Linda Morrison, divorced from Master Sergeant Morrison while he was deployed to Afghanistan. Jessica Chun, divorced from Lieutenant Chun during his Iraq deployment. Both women later discovered you drained their bank accounts and disappeared. Jessica attempted suicide 6 months after her divorce was finalized. The room went dead silent. Brooke stared at Kyle with growing horror. "Kyle, is this true?" "Brooke, he's lying. He's just trying to." Tyler continued scrolling. "Yesterday, you attempted to withdraw $47,000 from my joint account with Brooke. Bank security denied the transaction and flagged it as suspected fraud. Federal investigators are currently reviewing the attempted theft." Kyle's face went pale. "That was Brooke's idea," she said. "Kyle." Tyler's voice carried the quiet authority of someone who'd commanded nuclear weapons. "Shut up." Tyler turned to his children. "Emma, Josh, go to your rooms. Daddy needs to talk to Mommy and Kyle alone." Emma started to object, but something in Tyler's voice, the same tone he used to give orders that could never be questioned, sent both children quickly upstairs. Tyler waited until he heard their bedroom doors close, then turned back to Kyle. 3 months ago, you thought you'd found another easy target. Military husband deployed, lonely wife, stable income. Standard predator protocol. Tyler, stop, Brooke said. Kyle's not like that. He loves me. Tyler pulled out his laptop and opened a file. Brooke, Kyle doesn't love you. Kyle loves your base housing allowance, your military-dependent benefits, and your access to my assets. The day our divorce is finalized, you'll discover what Linda Morrison and Jessica Chun discovered. Kyle disappears the moment the money runs out. Tyler turned the laptop toward them. The screen showed bank records, court documents, and psychological evaluations documenting Kyle's pattern across multiple military families. Kyle, you made one critical error in your assessment, Tyler continued. You assumed submarine commanders are like other military spouses you've targeted. You thought 3 months underwater meant 3 months of isolation, confusion, and emotional vulnerability. Kyle tried to regain his composure. Look, Tyler, I get it. You're upset. But Brooke and I are in love, and the kids are happy. You can't just. Tyler's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled coldly. Kyle, that was base security. They're currently reviewing surveillance video of you teaching my children that military personnel are dangerous and trained to hurt kids. They're also reviewing your attempts to access military facilities using Brooke's dependent ID. That's not illegal, Kyle said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, it is. Fraudulent use of military credentials, attempted theft of government benefits, and psychological abuse of military dependents. Each one is a federal crime. Tyler's phone rang. He answered it on speaker. Commander Briggs. Sir, this is Captain Stevens. I have federal marshals here with warrants for Kyle Hoffman's arrest. Are you at your residence? Tyler looked directly at Kyle. Yes, sir. Mr. Hoffman is here. Kyle bolted toward the back door, but Tyler had anticipated this. The backyard was already secured by Senior Chief Walker and 2 federal agents. Kyle, Tyler called after him. Submariners don't just plan one move ahead. We plan the entire campaign. Through the kitchen window, Tyler watched Kyle run directly into the arms of federal marshals. The man who'd spent 3 months bragging about taking on a military tough guy was now face down on Tyler's back lawn, being read his rights. Brooke collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Tyler, I didn't know. He said you were hiding money, that you didn't care about us, that military families got divorced all the time. Tyler looked at his wife. Ex-wife, he corrected himself, with the cold analysis he'd used to assess a damaged submarine system. Brooke, 3 months ago you sent me an email declaring war on our family. You didn't ask for counseling, didn't suggest we work on our problems, didn't even wait for me to return so we could discuss issues. You simply decided to destroy everything we'd built. But Kyle said, Kyle is a predator who identified you as a target. But Brooke, Kyle didn't force you to betray our marriage. Kyle didn't force you to poison our children against their father. Kyle didn't force you to try stealing my assets. You made those choices. Tyler's phone buzzed with another message. He read it and nodded. Brooke, federal agents are currently searching Kyle's apartment. They've found documents showing his systematic targeting of military families, including detailed plans for exploiting our family specifically. You weren't his girlfriend. You were his mark. Brooke looked up with tears streaming down her face. Tyler, I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Can we try to work this out? For the kids. Tyler studied the woman he'd been married to for 8 years, the mother of his children, the person he'd trusted with his heart while he served underwater. The woman who'd decided to destroy their family rather than wait 3 months to discuss their problems. Brooke, Tyler said quietly, submarine commanders don't forgive and forget. We analyze threats, neutralize them, and ensure they never threaten our mission again. Tyler walked to the front door and opened it. The divorce papers you wanted me to sign are unnecessary. I'm filing for divorce on grounds of adultery, attempted theft, and psychological abuse of our children. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Tyler, please. Brooke, you declared war on this family. I've just won that war. Completely. As federal agents led Kyle away in handcuffs, Tyler realized the surface engagement was just beginning. He'd neutralized the immediate threat, but the campaign for his children's future was far from over. Tyler called upstairs. Emma, Josh, come down. Daddy needs to explain some things. Tyler felt rage building in his chest, but he controlled it with the same discipline that had kept him alive underwater for 16 years. Emotional responses were luxury items. Right now, he needed tactical precision. Rachel, execute the financial protection protocols. I want every asset locked down before I reach port. Already done. Kyle's going to discover that military spouse benefits don't extend to boyfriends. Brooke's access to base services, housing allowances, and dependent benefits ended the moment she provided him with account information. Tyler's second call was to Chief Rodriguez. "Chief, I need immediate transportation from Norfolk to my house. How fast can you get there?" "Boss, I'm already here. Been watching the house since yesterday. You need to see what Walker documented." Tyler's third call was to his base commander, Captain Stevens. "Captain, Commander Briggs requesting immediate family emergency leave upon return to port." "Granted, Tyler. How long do you need?" "Sir, I estimate 48 hours to resolve the situation completely." As the Hartford approached Norfolk Naval Base, Tyler reviewed the intelligence reports that had accumulated during their final week underwater. The picture was worse than he'd anticipated. Kyle had systematically isolated Emma and Josh from their father's memory. Photos showed Kyle teaching them martial arts moves specifically designed to fight off attackers like soldiers. Video surveillance showed Kyle telling the children that military people are trained to hurt kids who don't obey. Most damaging was Kyle's systematic financial exploitation. He'd convinced Brooke to increase the amount she was requesting in the divorce from half of Tyler's assets to 3/4, claiming Tyler had hidden military accounts that justified the increase. Kyle had also pressured Brooke to take out loans against Tyler's future military benefits. But Kyle's most serious mistake was his treatment of the children. Dr. Price's report documented systematic emotional abuse designed to make Emma and Josh afraid of their father's return. Kyle had convinced them that Tyler was dangerous and that they needed Kyle to protect them. Tyler's phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Brooke, it was his children. "Daddy." Emma's voice was small and frightened. "Are you coming home?" Tyler's heart broke hearing the fear in his daughter's voice. "Yes, Princess. Daddy's coming home today. Kyle says." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "Kyle says you might be angry at us for liking him." Tyler closed his eyes, drawing on every ounce of self-control he possessed. "Emma, listen to me very carefully. I love you and Josh more than anything in the world. I'm not angry at you. I'm coming home to take care of you." "But Kyle says." "Emma, Kyle has been saying a lot of things that aren't true. When I get home, we're going to talk about everything, okay? Just you, me, and Josh." After hanging up, Tyler realized Kyle had made a fatal error. By frightening the children, Kyle had given Tyler grounds for emergency custody intervention. Military family courts took very seriously any evidence that civilian partners were psychologically damaging military children. The Hartford docked at Norfolk at 1,534 hours. Tyler was the first man off the submarine, carrying a single duffel bag and a laptop case containing 3 months of operational planning. Chief Rodriguez waited at the pier, his expression grim. "Boss, you need to know, Kyle's been telling people around town that he's not worried about you coming back. Says submariners are all talk, and that he can handle any military tough guy." Tyler smiled coldly. "Chief, Kyle's about to learn the difference between movie tough guys and actual submarine commanders." As they drove through Norfolk toward Tyler's house, Tyler activated the final phase of his underwater planning. Text messages went out to 6 different contacts, each one triggering a predetermined action in Tyler's comprehensive assault on Kyle and Brooke's position. Rachel Torres filed emergency custody papers citing psychological abuse of military dependents. Dr. Price submitted her evaluation to Family Services, recommending immediate intervention. Senior Chief Walker delivered surveillance evidence to the base security office, documenting Kyle's attempted theft of military assets. Lieutenant Palmer, now a civilian lawyer, filed papers freezing all joint assets pending investigation of financial fraud. Bank security forwarded Kyle's attempted withdrawal to federal authorities as suspected theft of military funds during deployment. And Tyler sent a single text message to Brooke, "Home in 20 minutes. We need to talk." Tyler's phone immediately rang. Brooke's voice was panicked, desperate. "Tyler, I can explain everything. Kyle was just trying to help with the finances. The kids love him, but they miss you too. Maybe we can work something out." Tyler hung up without responding. Chief Rodriguez glanced at his former commander. "Boss, what's the plan when we get there?" Tyler checked his watch. "Chief, submarine warfare has 3 phases: intelligence gathering, positioning, and attack. I've spent 3 months on the first 2 phases. And now?" Tyler's smile was cold as Arctic water. "Now Kyle Hoffman discovers what happens when you declare war on a submarine commander." As they turned onto Tyler's street, Tyler saw his house for the first time in 3 months. Kyle's truck sat in the driveway like a declaration of conquest. But Tyler noticed something Kyle probably hadn't. 2 unmarked cars parked across the street, and a van with tinted windows positioned at the corner. Tyler's network was already in position. The surface war was about to begin. Chapter 5. First Strike. Tyler's house looked the same from the outside, but everything felt different as he walked up the driveway. Kyle's truck, a lifted Ford F-150 with aggressive tires and martial arts studio decals, dominated the space where Tyler's modest sedan usually parked. Even the vehicle was a statement. Bigger, louder, more aggressive than anything Tyler owned. Tyler approached the front door with the measured pace of a submarine commander taking the boat to periscope depth, controlled, alert, ready for anything. He could hear voices inside. Brooke's anxious tone, Kyle's deeper voice trying to sound calm, and the children's excited chatter about Daddy coming home. Tyler didn't knock. It was his house. The living room looked like Kyle had moved in permanently. His martial arts equipment filled one corner. His clothes were scattered on Tyler's furniture, and his presence seemed to dominate every space. But what hit Tyler hardest was seeing Emma and Josh hesitate when they saw him, as if they weren't sure whether to run to him or stay where they were. Daddy! Josh finally broke free and ran to Tyler, but even his 6-year-old son seemed nervous, glancing back at Kyle as if seeking permission. As his children descended the stairs, looking confused and frightened, Tyler realized this was the most important mission of his life. Rebuilding their trust, healing their psychological wounds, and ensuring they never again fell victim to predators like Kyle Hoffman. The submarine had surfaced. The real work was just beginning. Chapter 6. Psychological Warfare. The federal agent's cars had barely disappeared from Tyler's street when he realized the most dangerous phase of his operation was just beginning. Kyle's arrest had been the easy part. Predators like him left evidence trails that prosecutors loved. But the psychological damage Kyle had inflicted on Emma and Josh would take months to repair, and Brooke's betrayal had left wounds that might never fully heal. Tyler sat in his living room with his children, noting how they positioned themselves. Emma on the far end of the couch, maintaining distance, while Josh stayed close but kept glancing toward the stairs as if planning an escape route. Both behaviors were symptoms of the systematic manipulation Kyle had employed. Daddy, Emma said carefully. Kyle said you might be angry at us for liking him. Tyler felt the familiar cold rage, but he kept his voice gentle. Emma, I'm not angry at you or Josh. I'm angry at Kyle for lying to you and trying to make you afraid of me. But he said military people are trained to hurt kids who don't obey, Josh whispered. Tyler closed his eyes briefly, drawing on every technique he'd learned for controlling emotions under pressure. Kyle had weaponized his children's natural respect for his authority, turning it into fear. It was sophisticated psychological warfare, and Kyle had been more effective than Tyler had anticipated. Josh, look at me, Tyler said quietly. Have I ever hurt you? Josh shook his head. Have I ever hurt Emma? Another head shake. Have I ever hurt anyone except to protect people I love? Josh thought about this, his 6-year-old mind processing concepts that should never burden children. Finally, he shook his head again. Josh, Kyle lied to you because he wanted you to be afraid of me. He wanted you to think I was bad so you would like him instead. But lying to kids about their parents is something only bad people do. Emma, older and more analytical, asked the question Tyler had been dreading. Daddy, is Mommy bad too? Tyler looked at his daughter, so much like him in her directness, her need to understand complex situations. He could give her a comfortable lie, protect her from the full scope of her mother's betrayal. Or he could give her the truth and help her develop the critical thinking skills she'd need to avoid future predators. Tyler chose truth. Emma, Mommy made very bad choices. She chose to believe Kyle's lies about me, and she chose to let Kyle lie to you and Josh. Adults who let other people hurt their children have made bad choices, even if they're not bad people. Is Mommy going to jail like Kyle? Tyler considered this carefully. Brooke's crimes were more complex than Kyle's, less obviously criminal, but more personally devastating. Emma, Mommy broke laws about military families, and she helped Kyle try to steal Daddy's money. She might go to jail, but that's for judges to decide. Josh climbed into Tyler's lap, his small body seeking the security Kyle had tried to destroy. Daddy, are you going to go away again? Not for a long time, buddy. Daddy's taking leave to stay home with you and Emma while we figure everything out. Emma's analytical mind was still processing. Daddy, if Mommy goes to jail, what happens to us? Tyler had prepared for this question during his months underwater. You stay with me. You're my kids, and I'm never going to let anyone hurt you again. Even if they try? Tyler looked at his daughter, seeing his own determination reflected in her young face. Emma, what do submarine commanders do when someone threatens their boat? Emma thought about the stories Tyler had told her over the years. They make the bad guys go away. That's right. And you and Josh are more important to me than any submarine. That evening, after putting the children to bed, Tyler sat in his kitchen reviewing the psychological evaluation Dr. Price had prepared. The damage assessment was extensive. Both children showed signs of parental alienation syndrome, anxiety related to their father's deployment, and learned helplessness regarding their mother's protection. But Dr. Price had also noted positive signs. Emma's intelligence and Josh's emotional resilience suggested they could recover fully with proper intervention. The key was consistency, honesty, and rebuilding their sense of security. Tyler's phone rang. Rachel Torres from the Pentagon. Tyler, how are the kids handling everything? Better than expected, but Kyle did serious psychological damage. How's the legal situation? Kyle's looking at federal charges that could put him away for 10 to 15 years. His pattern of targeting military families during deployments qualifies as organized fraud against government personnel. The prosecutors are very interested in making an example. And Brooke? Rachel's voice grew careful. Tyler, Brooke's cooperation with federal investigators will likely keep her out of prison, but she's going to lose custody. The evidence of her allowing Kyle to psychologically abuse the children is overwhelming. Tyler felt no satisfaction in Brooke's downfall. Destroying his ex-wife wouldn't repair the damage she'd allowed Kyle to inflict on their children. Rachel, I need resources for deprogramming the kids from Kyle's manipulation. Military Family Services must have protocols. Already arranged. Dr. Price has clearance to work with Emma and Josh for as long as necessary. She specializes in rebuilding trust relationships damaged by parental alienation. Tyler's second call was to his commanding officer. Captain Stevens, I need to discuss my career timeline. Tyler, take all the time you need. The Navy understands family emergencies. Sir, I'm requesting transfer to shore duty. Permanent assignment. My children need stability, and I can't provide that from underwater. Captain Stevens was quiet for a moment. Tyler, you're one of our best submarine commanders. Shore duty would effectively end your advancement opportunities. Understood, sir. My children are more important than my career. Tyler's final call of the evening was to Senior Chief Walker, who'd been maintaining surveillance on Brooke since Kyle's arrest. Chief, how's she handling Kyle's arrest? Boss, she's falling apart. Been calling Kyle's lawyer, trying to visit him in federal lockup, claiming the whole thing is a misunderstanding. She's still convinced Kyle loves her. Tyler realized Brooke was experiencing what psychologists called trauma bonding, the same mechanism that kept domestic violence victims attached to their abusers. Kyle's manipulation had been more sophisticated than Tyler had realized, targeting not just the children but Brooke's psychological vulnerabilities as well. Chief, I need you to document everything she does for the next week. Phone calls, visits, any attempts to contact Kyle or interfere with the federal investigation. You think she's going to cause more problems? Tyler stared out his kitchen window at the street where his children had played before Kyle poisoned their sense of security. Chief, Brooke chose Kyle over her own children's psychological well-being. People who make choices that bad don't suddenly start making good decisions. Tyler spent the rest of the evening reading Dr. Price's recommendations for rebuilding trust with psychologically manipulated children. The process would take months of consistent behavior, honest communication, and patient demonstration that their father was safe, reliable, and committed to their protection. But Tyler had learned something important during his 16 years underwater. The most complex operations required breaking large objectives into small, manageable tasks. He couldn't repair 3 months of psychological damage overnight, but he could make progress every single day. Tyler opened his laptop and began planning what Dr. Price called therapeutic consistency protocols, specific daily routines designed to rebuild Emma and Josh's sense of security while gradually deprogramming Kyle's manipulation. Phase 1. Establish safety and predictability. Phase 2. Rebuild trust through consistent behavior. Phase 3. Help them process their mother's betrayal. Phase 4. Prepare them for whatever legal consequences Brooke faced. Tyler had spent 3 months underwater planning Kyle's destruction. Now he would spend however long it took rebuilding his children's ability to trust, love, and feel secure. It was the most important mission of his life. Chapter 7. Going Nuclear. 2 weeks after Kyle's arrest, Tyler's carefully controlled world exploded. He was making breakfast for Emma and Josh when his phone rang with news that changed everything. Tyler, this is Rachel. You need to know, Brooke posted bail for Kyle yesterday. Federal marshals released him with an ankle monitor pending trial. Tyler's blood went ice cold. How is that possible? She mortgaged the house, used the equity to hire Kyle a high-powered defense attorney who argued Kyle was a victim of entrapment. The judge set bail at $200,000. Tyler looked at his children eating cereal at the kitchen table, unaware that the man who'd terrorized them was now free. Where's Kyle now? Staying with Brooke at a motel outside the base. Tyler, there's more. Kyle's attorney is claiming you orchestrated everything, that you used military intelligence resources to frame an innocent civilian. Tyler felt the familiar cold calculation settling over him. Kyle's release meant the gloves were coming off. No more legal niceties, no more working within the system. Kyle had just escalated to total warfare. Rachel, what's Kyle's legal strategy? His lawyers claiming you're an unstable military veteran who couldn't handle normal divorce proceedings. They're going to argue that you used your submarine training to wage psychological warfare against civilians. Tyler smiled grimly. Kyle's attorney was smarter than expected, but they'd made one critical error. They'd assumed Tyler had been operating at maximum capacity during the legal phase of his campaign. Rachel, everything I've done so far has been completely legal and documented. But Kyle's attorney just declared that legal constraints are off the table. Tyler, what does that mean? It means Kyle wants to play the game without rules. That's a very dangerous decision when your opponent is a submarine commander. After hanging up, Tyler sat Emma and Josh down for the hardest conversation of their young lives. Kids, I need to tell you something important. The bad man Kyle is out of jail. Emma's face went pale. Is he coming back here? No, princess. He's not allowed to come here, and he's not allowed to contact you. But I need you both to understand some new rules. Tyler explained the security protocols he'd implemented. Emma and Josh would stay with Dr. Price's family during school hours. Tyler would pick them up personally every day, and they would never be alone outside the house. Daddy, Josh asked, are you going to fight Kyle? Tyler looked at his 6-year-old son, seeing the same analytical mind that had made Tyler successful underwater. Josh, sometimes bad people force good people to stop being nice. Kyle's lawyer just told everyone that Kyle doesn't want to follow rules anymore. What happens when people don't follow rules? Tyler's smile was cold as Arctic water. They discover that the only thing worse than someone who follows rules is someone who doesn't need to. That afternoon, Tyler implemented what he privately called Phase Nuclear. For 2 weeks, he'd operated within legal constraints, using official channels and documented procedures. Kyle's release and his attorney's strategy meant Tyler would now operate the way submarine commanders fought actual wars, with overwhelming force applied to critical vulnerabilities. Tyler's first call was to Chief Rodriguez. Chief, I need you to activate the network. Full operational status. Boss, are we talking about the legal network or the other network? Tyler had 2 groups of contacts from his military service. The first group, lawyers, psychologists, official investigators, operated within legal boundaries. The second group operated in what veterans called the gray areas, private security, intelligence gathering, and problem solving that couldn't be documented in official reports. The other network, Chief. Kyle just declared war outside legal constraints. Understood, boss. What's the target package? Tyler spent the next hour outlining what submariners called a total kill solution, systematic destruction of Kyle's ability to threaten Tyler's family through any means necessary. This wasn't about courts or custody hearings anymore. This was about permanently eliminating a threat to his children's safety. Tyler's second call was to someone whose name appeared in no official military records, Marcus Kane, a former Navy SEAL who now ran a private security company specializing in risk elimination for high-value clients. Kane, it's Tyler Briggs. I need comprehensive threat assessment and elimination. Kane's voice carried the calm professionalism of someone who'd solved problems that couldn't be discussed in polite company. Tyler, send me the package. What's the timeline? Immediate. The threat just escalated beyond legal constraints. Tyler's third call was to Dr. Price. Doctor, I need you to take Emma and Josh for the next 48 hours. I'm implementing emergency security protocols. Dr. Price had worked with military families long enough to understand operational language. Tyler, are you going to do something that could impact your custody case? Doctor, there won't be a custody case if Kyle eliminates the threat to himself. That evening, Tyler sat in his house alone for the first time since returning from deployment. He'd sent his children to safety, activated his military network, and prepared for total war. Now he had to wait for Kyle to make his next move. Kyle didn't disappoint. At 2,147 hours, Tyler's security system detected movement in his backyard. Tyler watched through infrared cameras as Kyle approached the house, carrying what appeared to be a crowbar. Kyle had removed his ankle monitor, a federal crime that would send him back to prison immediately, and was clearly planning to confront Tyler directly. Tyler smiled as he watched Kyle circle the house, looking for entry points. Kyle thought he was hunting a submarine commander. He had no idea he was walking into a trap that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. Tyler activated his throat mic, connecting him to Chief Rodriguez and the surveillance team positioned around his property. All stations, target is on site and armed. Weapons free for defensive action. Tyler pulled on his tactical vest and checked his sidearm. After 16 years underwater, he was finally fighting an enemy he could see. Kyle was about to discover the difference between terrorizing children and facing a submarine commander who'd been pushed beyond legal constraints. The war was about to become a slaughter. Tyler opened his front door and stepped onto his porch, standing in full view under the porch light. Kyle was 30 yards away, crouched behind Tyler's truck. Kyle, Tyler called out, his voice carrying across the quiet suburban night. You're trespassing on federal property. You violated your bail conditions. And you're threatening a military family. Kyle stood up, gripping the crowbar. Tyler, you destroyed my life. You ruined everything. Tyler walked down his front steps with the measured pace of a submarine commander taking his boat into combat. Kyle, I didn't destroy your life. I documented it. There's a difference. You think you're so smart with your military training and your lawyers, Kyle shouted, moving closer. But you're just another sailor boy who can't fight like a real man. Tyler stopped 20 feet from Kyle, close enough to see the desperation and rage in the other man's eyes. Kyle, you've made 3 mistakes tonight. You removed your ankle monitor, which violated federal bail conditions. You brought a weapon onto military family housing, which is a federal crime. And you threatened my children, which makes this personal. I'm not afraid of you, Kyle said, raising the crowbar. Tyler's smile was cold and final. Kyle, you should be. What happened next lasted exactly 47 seconds and was captured by 6 different surveillance cameras positioned around Tyler's property. Tyler's military network had documented everything, ensuring that whatever occurred would be legally justified as self-defense of a federal service member's family. Kyle charged with the crowbar raised. Tyler moved with the precision of someone who'd trained for combat his entire adult life, disarming Kyle with techniques designed to neutralize threats aboard nuclear submarines where any violence could prove catastrophic. Kyle went down hard and didn't get up. As sirens approached, Tyler's security team had already called federal authorities. Tyler stood over Kyle's unconscious form and spoke quietly into his throat mic. All stations, threat neutralized. Target is alive, but no longer operational. Tyler looked down at the man who'd terrorized his children and tried to destroy his family. Kyle, you wanted to fight a submarine commander without rules. You just did. Federal marshals arrived to find Kyle unconscious with multiple fractures, his ankle monitor destroyed, and overwhelming evidence of premeditated assault on a military family. Tyler stood calmly on his porch, hands visible, ready to give his statement. The war was over. Tyler had won. But more importantly, Emma and Josh would never again have to fear the man who tried to steal their father and poison their minds. Tyler pulled out his phone and called Dr. Price. Doctor, the children can come home now. The threat has been permanently eliminated. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. 6 months after Kyle's final arrest, Tyler stood in a federal courthouse watching the man who'd terrorized his family receive a 15-year sentence for assault on a military family, bail violation, fraud targeting government personnel, and systematic psychological abuse of military dependents. Kyle looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, the arrogance and predatory confidence completely gone. His high-powered attorney had tried every strategy possible, but Kyle's pattern of targeting military families, now documented across 4 states, had made him a federal priority. The fact that he'd removed his ankle monitor to assault Tyler had eliminated any possibility of leniency. Tyler felt no satisfaction watching Kyle's sentencing. Satisfaction was an emotional response, and Tyler had learned to approach victories the way submarine commanders approached successful torpedo runs, with professional assessment and immediate transition to the next objective. His next objective was rebuilding his children's trust in their own judgment and preparing them for their mother's trial. Emma and Josh had been living with Tyler for 6 months, attending therapy with Dr. Price twice a week, and slowly recovering from Kyle's psychological manipulation. The progress was measurable but fragile. Emma had stopped flinching when Tyler raised his voice. Josh no longer had nightmares about bad things happening when Tyler went to work. But both children still struggled with trusting their own perceptions, a common symptom of systematic manipulation. Kyle had taught them to doubt their instincts, to accept lies as truth, to fear the person who loved them most. Repairing that damage was proving more complex than neutralizing Kyle himself. "Daddy," Emma had asked the week before, "how do you know when adults are telling the truth?" Tyler had thought carefully before answering. "Emma, people who love you tell you truth even when it's hard to hear. People who want to use you tell you lies that make you feel good. But Kyle made me feel good about martial arts and being strong. Emma, Kyle taught you real skills, but he lied about why he was teaching them. He wanted you to be strong so you could protect him from Daddy, not so you could protect yourself from bad people." It was a subtle distinction, but Tyler had learned that rebuilding trust required addressing every aspect of Kyle's manipulation, no matter how small. Tyler's relationship with Brooke remained complicated. She'd avoided federal charges by cooperating with investigators and testifying against Kyle, but she'd lost all custody rights and most of her access to Emma and Josh. The children were allowed supervised visits twice a month, but both kids approached these meetings with visible anxiety. "She still thinks Kyle was a good person who made mistakes," Dr. Price had explained to Tyler. "Until Brooke accepts full responsibility for her choices, the children will continue to see her as psychologically unsafe." Tyler understood the children's position. Trust, once broken through systematic betrayal, couldn't be rebuilt through weekend visits and awkward conversations. Brooke would have to prove, through years of consistent behavior, that she could prioritize her children's well-being over her own desires. Tyler doubted she was capable of that level of change. The most unexpected development had been Tyler's career advancement. Rather than ending his military progression, Tyler's handling of Kyle's threat had impressed his superiors. His systematic documentation, legal precision, and protection of military family integrity had become a case study at the Naval War College. "Commander Briggs," Captain Stevens had said during Tyler's performance review, "your approach to this situation demonstrated exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need in senior leadership. How would you feel about commanding the War College's Family Protection Protocols program?" Tyler had accepted immediately. The position would keep him shore-based, allow him to develop better protection systems for other military families, and provide the stability Emma and Josh needed. But Tyler's greatest success had been rebuilding his children's confidence in their own judgment. Through months of patient conversation, consistent behavior, and careful truth-telling, Tyler had helped them understand that Kyle's manipulation hadn't been their fault. "Emma," Tyler had explained, "Kyle was a professional liar. He practiced lying to kids for years before he met you. You couldn't have known he was lying because he was very good at it. But you knew." "Emma, I knew because I'm trained to spot enemies, and I had information you didn't have. That's not because you're not smart. It's because I'm trained for this kind of warfare." The conversation that had convinced Tyler his children were truly healing came during a family dinner 3 weeks earlier. "Daddy," Josh had said, "Tommy at school says his mom's new boyfriend is really nice and better than his dad." Tyler had prepared for this moment, the inevitable comparison to their own experience with Kyle. "What do you think about that, Josh?" Josh had considered the question with the careful analysis Tyler recognized, as his own thinking process. I think Tommy should be careful. Nice people don't say they're better than other people. Emma had nodded. And if Tommy's mom's boyfriend really loves them, he wouldn't need to say bad things about Tommy's dad. Tyler had realized in that moment that his children had internalized the most important lesson from their experience with Kyle. Predators revealed themselves through their need to diminish existing relationships rather than building positive new ones. As Tyler left the courthouse after Kyle's sentencing, he reflected on the year that had changed everything about his life. He'd lost his marriage, discovered the woman he'd trusted was capable of betraying their children, and been forced to wage war against a predator who'd targeted his family. But he'd also discovered that his children were stronger than he'd realized, that his military training translated perfectly to protecting the people he loved most, and that sometimes the complete destruction of what you thought you wanted led to something better than you'd imagined. Tyler's phone buzzed with a text from Emma, sent from Dr. Price's office where both children were attending their final therapy session. "Daddy, Dr. Price says we don't need to come here anymore because we're healthy now. Can we go get ice cream to celebrate?" Tyler smiled as he typed back, "Yes, Princess. We can celebrate that you and Josh are strong enough to handle anything." As Tyler drove home to his children, he realized he'd achieved something more valuable than winning a war. He'd rebuilt a family that was stronger, more honest, and more resilient than what they'd lost. Kyle Hoffman had tried to destroy Tyler's family and had instead forged them into something unbreakable. It was the most complete victory Tyler had ever achieved. Chapter 9, Silent Victory. 2 years after Kyle's sentencing, Tyler stood in the backyard of his new house, watching Emma and Josh practice the martial arts techniques he'd been teaching them. Real self-defense, not the psychological manipulation Kyle had disguised as training. At 10, Emma moved with the precision and focus that reminded Tyler of his own approach to complex problems. At 8, Josh combined natural athleticism with an emotional intelligence that surprised Tyler daily. Both children had grown into confident, resilient kids who could spot manipulation attempts from adults with the same skill Tyler used to detect enemy submarines. "Dad?" Emma called from where she was practicing defensive techniques. "Remember when Kyle said military people were dangerous?" Tyler looked up from the grill where he was preparing dinner. "I remember. He was right." Emma continued, executing a perfect defensive sequence, but not the way he meant it. Josh nodded sagely. "We're dangerous to people who try to hurt families." Tyler smiled at his children's logic. They'd transformed Kyle's attempted manipulation into an understanding of strength as protection rather than aggression. It was exactly the lesson Tyler had hoped they'd learn. Tyler's new house sat on 5 acres outside Norfolk, far enough from base housing to provide privacy, but close enough for Tyler's daily commute to the Naval War College. The property included a workshop where Tyler and the kids built projects together, a garden where they grew their own vegetables, and enough space for Emma and Josh to experience the independence Tyler believed was essential for their development. The house also included security measures that would have impressed his former submarine crews: motion sensors, cameras, and communication systems that ensured Tyler would know immediately if anyone approached his family with hostile intent. Tyler had learned that protecting the people you love required the same systematic approach as protecting a nuclear submarine. Tyler's work at the War College had evolved into something he'd never expected, developing protocols to protect military families from predators like Kyle. Tyler's case had revealed a pattern of civilian criminals specifically targeting deployed service members' families, exploiting the unique vulnerabilities created by military service. Commander Briggs, Admiral Harrison had said during Tyler's latest performance review, "Your family protection protocols have reduced military divorce fraud by 60% across the Atlantic Fleet. How do you feel about expanding this program Navy-wide?" Tyler had accepted the promotion to captain and the expanded responsibilities, knowing that protecting other military families was the best way to honor what his own family had survived. But Tyler's greatest achievement wasn't professional. It was the relationship he'd built with Emma and Josh. The children who'd been terrorized by Kyle's manipulation had grown into confident, emotionally intelligent kids who understood the difference between love and control. "Dad," Emma had said the previous week, "Sarah at school says her mom's boyfriend bought her lots of presents and wants to be her new dad. But he also says mean things about her real dad." Tyler had listened carefully to Emma's analysis of her friend's situation, noting how naturally his daughter applied the lessons she'd learned from Kyle's manipulation. What do you think about that situation, Emma? I think Sarah's mom's boyfriend is like Kyle. Real people who love kids don't need to buy their love or make them choose between parents. Tyler had been proud of Emma's insight, but prouder of her next statement. I told Sarah she should talk to a grown-up she trusts about how the boyfriend makes her feel. Josh had nodded. And I told her that dads who really love their kids don't disappear just because someone new shows up. Tyler realized his children had developed the emotional intelligence to protect themselves and help protect others from the kind of predator Kyle represented. They'd transformed their trauma into wisdom and their vulnerability into strength. Tyler's relationship with Brooke remained minimal and carefully controlled. She'd completed court-mandated therapy and requested increased visitation, but Emma and Josh had made their own decision about their mother's role in their lives. Dad, Josh had said during one of their family meetings, we know Mom loves us, but we also know she made really bad choices that could have hurt us. We want to see her sometimes, but we want to live with you. Emma had been more direct. Mom chose Kyle over protecting us. You chose protecting us over everything else. That's the difference between someone who says they love you and someone who actually does. Tyler had supported his children's decision while ensuring they understood that people could change and that their mother's love, however flawed, was real. But he'd also made it clear that trust had to be earned through consistent behavior over time. Brooke's supervised visits occurred monthly, and Tyler could see genuine remorse in her efforts to rebuild relationships with Emma and Josh. But he could also see that his children approached their mother with careful emotional distance, not cruelty, but the self-protective awareness that Tyler considered essential for their long-term safety. Tyler's personal life remained deliberately simple. He'd received interest from several women over the past 2 years, but Tyler had no intention of remarrying or introducing romantic complications into his children's lives. Emma and Josh had experienced enough adult relationship chaos to last a lifetime. Dad, Emma had asked recently, don't you want to get married again? Tyler had considered the question carefully. Emma, I have everything I need. You, Josh, work I find meaningful, and the knowledge that our family is safe and strong. Why would I risk changing that? What if you met someone really nice? Emma, I thought your mother was really nice when I married her. I thought Kyle seemed helpful when your mother first mentioned him. Adults can be very good at seeming nice when they want something. Josh had nodded thoughtfully. So you're going to stay single to protect us? Tyler had pulled both children close. Josh, I'm going to make decisions based on what's best for our family. Right now, what's best is keeping our life stable and secure. As Tyler finished grilling dinner, he reflected on the conversation he'd had with his children about Kyle's sentencing appeal, which had been denied the previous month. Dad, Emma had asked, do you think Kyle learned his lesson? Tyler had answered with the honesty that had become the foundation of their family communication. Emma, people like Kyle don't learn lessons. They learn better ways to hide what they really are. That's why it's important that he stays in prison where he can't hurt other families. Will he try to hurt us when he gets out? Tyler had looked at his daughter, now tall for 10, confident, and capable of defending herself both physically and emotionally. Emma, Kyle will be in prison for 13 more years. By then, you'll be 23 and Josh will be 21. You'll both be adults who can spot manipulation and protect yourselves. And you'll still be our dad, Josh had added with the certainty Tyler had worked to rebuild in his children. Forever, Tyler had confirmed. As his family sat down for dinner in the secure home Tyler had built for them, Tyler realized he'd achieved something more valuable than career success or personal revenge. He'd protected the people who mattered most, eliminated the threats to their safety, and built a life based on truth, security, and genuine love. Emma and Josh chattered about their school projects, their friends, and their plans for the weekend. Normal childhood concerns possible only because Tyler had systematically eliminated the abnormal threats to their stability. Tyler looked at his children and realized that Kyle Hoffman's attempt to destroy their family had ultimately made them stronger than they'd ever been before. They'd survived manipulation, betrayal, and psychological warfare, emerging with wisdom, confidence, and unshakable bonds. Kyle was serving 15 years in federal prison. Brooke was slowly rebuilding her relationship with children who'd learned to set healthy boundaries. And Tyler had built a life that honored everything he'd learned about protection, loyalty, and the difference between saying you love someone and actually proving it through your choices. It was the most complete victory Tyler had ever achieved, measured not in the destruction of his enemies, but in the strength and security of the family he'd protected. As Emma and Josh laughed over dinner, Tyler realized that sometimes the greatest triumph wasn't winning a war. It was building something so strong that your enemy's attacks only made it stronger. Tyler Briggs had accomplished both. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.